imagine. And we certainly intend, because our belief is, and of course we haven't got the full data yet, but our belief is that this has worked really well, and we certainly intend to do it again. Now you ask what the secret of the success is. One is being there for the long term.
On the ground.
On the ground. The other is, of course, that we got the local community involved. For example, when we were judging which of the projects to be involved with, we asked the local dignitaries to come in. We consulted with the deputy mayor as part of the project. I very much didn't want this to be something which was seen to be some sort of alien spaceship
Foreign.
landing in Nablus, coming out and then disappearing again. I very much wanted this to be something which helps the people get ownership of this project. And we actually hope to see this as a long-term project where gradually our involvement slowly tapers out and the local community involvement builds up and takes over, because that's the aim. The aim isn't for me to have some sort of business empire. The aim is for local people to use local talents to provide local jobs.
Right. And do you think this is a new trend? Because in the old days, you help people in the third world countries by charity or setting up an organization, aid organization. But now we're talking about empowering women and the society economically. We've seen President Obama doing this entrepreneurship summit. We see your foundation, maybe also the former Prime Minister Foundation. So do you think this is the new trend, trying to build societies from the bottom up? And are you worried also that there is a political price for it, because some will say you are building an economic peace as opposed to have a settlement where afterwards people building their country?
Well, let me say first of all that I myself, I come from this not as a business person but as a human rights lawyer, though as a human rights lawyer I do have my own business. And I've always thought that there is much more dignity in giving people a hand up rather than a hand out. And that actually if you give people the tools, they know so much better than you do what needs to be done. And I think we tried to put that into practice. And I was particularly taken with the idea of the waste
The
recycling idea.
Cleaning the environment and making money at the same time.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a win-win situation, and it's something that came out of their absolute knowledge, living in the place, of what needed to be done. And it also has an impact on civic pride as well. As for, of course, economic activity is not a panacea for everything. And of course we need peace, but we need both. And we need both working hand in hand. And of course my husband's role in the quartet has been very much helping the building up of the Palestinian economy, the building up of the capacity of a Palestinian state. And that isn't something that just is created overnight. And it's not something just to wait for till some magic day it all happens. It has to be worked for and pushed for, and I see economic development as very much a part of that.
And quickly, I wanted to ask you a few things. Number one is, you said that you identify the local partner. You go to an area and you find which is NGO that's working there for a long time, and you partner with them and you work with them. So you don't want to be seen as you said before, to impose your idea on. How do you choose the NGO? How do you know what's best for the people?
Well, that's why we rely on information, and actually for visiting ourselves and seeing what's going on. I mean, I'm very, very keen on this, because when my husband was Prime Minister, I was involved in much work with NGOs, and I've seen fantastic work that NGOs do across the world, but I'm always struck by the fact that often they don't talk to each other, and they don't know what's going on in different parts, and I don't want to add an additional NGO to that mix. What I want to try and do is to work with what's already succeeding on the ground and help build up that capacity, which is exactly what we've done with Tomorrow's Youth Organisation and indeed with the Palestinian Business Women's Forum. They were already there. Right. They just needed a little bit of profile, of money, of assistance, which I can give them because of essentially what is my husband's name. And because of that, we've helped them build up and their organisations. And that I think is really, really important. How do we find them? Well, in Palestine, obviously, we already had very good connections.
Right.
So we find out about people, we do our investigation into these NGOs, which ones we think have the right sort of model. And then, of course, it is partly, of course, we visit and talk and see whether some of it is about whether we can work together. Because obviously we bring a particular expertise and we have a particular way of working. So though we don't impose our views on people, we do ask them to comply with our standards. And so you need to have that negotiated between two equal parties rather than between a sort of gracious benefactor and a poor supplicant. That's not where we're at. We're at about two people or two groups working together, each with different strengths and abilities, and by coming together, producing a much better overall effort.
I'm going to answer your question because I come from Gaza, and very often the attention goes to the West Bank for the obvious political realities. But in Gaza, people are punished twice by so many people. So do you, I will ask you, do you have any plans to expand your project, to trying to fund local NGOs that work in Gaza with women and with children, and to transform these ideas from the West Bank into Gaza?
Well, certainly, as I said to you when we met, that I actually have been to Gaza in 1999 and saw then an NGO working with children with special needs. And I would love to go back to Gaza. And obviously, my long-term aim is to ensure that across Palestine, it's not just Ramallah and Nablus, but that we have these centres in other places, including Gaza. And as soon as the conditions are right for us to be able to go in, because until, of course, you can get goods out,
Right.
that there is little point in doing anything in that sense, anything of this kind anyway. Obviously, there's plenty of point in doing humanitarian aid and all the other things that are going on at the moment, but unless and until we have the ability for people to move freely in and out of Gaza, then clearly goods aren't going to be able to do that either.
And finally, Mrs. Blair, you're a woman of your own. You have your own recognition. You had your own career. Yet, yesterday I heard you talking about your upbringing. You were inspired by the